Chapter 311. Rebel Knights, why are you showing me this? Yuan's face darkened. He hated Godfrey more than anything. His hate for his sister only grew stronger after he met Godfrey. Yibo wasn't affected, as he was stuck in his own world, still floating in the excitement of the news he was about to show them. Because he's the strongest man before the dawn of progenitors and gods, it's been leaked that he was there in Incheon when Guild Master Alex fought the Shadow Demon General. Yibo continued. This information is said to come from the Guild Master himself. He said Godfrey Daniels wasn't affected one bit by the dark mist that has made a part of Incheon a wasteland. Yuan sighed dismissively, but his twin sister, Chu Ran, glared at him. This is the most mind-blowing. It's all over the internet. They said he single-handedly cleared the Crimson Touty dungeon and shut down the Blue Gate. Awesome. These feats have made him the strongest summoner of the Dawn of Origins. Adam was the strongest in the Dawn of Kings. I wasn't born then, but this time I get to tell everyone you attended the same school with a legend. Yibo's eyes sparkled. Big bro, please tell me all you know. I need to send it to my friends, they don't want to believe me. Slap. Yuan's palm struck his face before he could finish his sentence. The blow sent Yibo to the ground, his eyes wide and teary as he held his cheek, trembling as Yuan loomed over him, eyes gleaming. You want to know what he was like in school? A monster! Yuan bellowed, only for Chu Ran to push him aside, glaring at him with rage. He was talking about the strongest of the era, not the most perfect man. Good or bad, he cleared the Crimson Touty dungeon. Our parents' business was safe because of that. The guild master said this himself. The authorities could have handled that dungeon. He killed people, fed them to his summon, and went to clear those dungeons in search of more strength. Clearly, only your kind will support the likes of him. While Yuan yelled back, Yibo ran out of the room, tears spilling from his eyes. Yuan breathed heavily. There are more dungeons, way more dangerous than the Crimson Touty dungeon, around China, much less the entire world. Evolution hasn't stopped. By the time it does, Godfrey will be a thing of the past like Adam. There will always be the strongest of an era. Compared to the strength of whoever will be the strongest at the end of this era, Godfrey will be a mere flicker, forgotten like others before him. He scoffed. At least they saved lives. It will go down in history that he's one of the most notorious summoners to ever exist. At least his name will be in history. Where will yours be? Amongst the hidden diaries of twin brothers who tortured their sister with his parents, Chu Ran retorted. Yuan snickered, tilting his head as he sat on his sofa. Hurt, get out of my room. Go join his fangirls. Fangirling for a fanatic and a mass murderer, not surprising. You make me want to throw up. Yuan's face scrunched up in disgust. In our world, we humans are the apex, more superior than other creatures. That's what's happening now. Humanoid summoners, my kind, are the superior ones, and you're just animals that can speak. You feel fear. Does it hurt your pride that they are better than you, that I'm inherently better than you? Chu Ran shot back. Yuan moved, grabbing her neck and lifting her up, claws growing out of his fingers. I think you've skipped some of your classes. You're speaking like one of them already. Guess what? Godfrey is in the past now. The limelight has returned to people who will bring order. I bet he's in a corner begging the Mana Tree for favors. Get out. He walked straight to the door and tossed Chu Ran out. While he went to one of the most prestigious schools in the world, Chu Ran attended a normal school like someone without a summon, and was subject to the readjustment program all her life. Both were twins, born the same day, but their lives were starkly opposite. One walked in the light, the other cried in the dark, bearing the stigma of a humanoid summoner. Even her own family was biased against her. Rage boiled through Chu Ran as Yuan slammed his door. She rose to her feet and went to Yibo's room. Knock, knock. Yibo, it's me, she said softly. It took a while, but he opened the door, looking at her with swollen eyes. Chu Ran's face softened as she went on her knees and hugged him. It's okay, he's just not himself. He's still your big brother. He's not, Yibo retorted loudly. Chu Ran caressed his back, led him to his bed, and stayed with him until he fell asleep before she went to her own room. Her room had all that she wanted, but it was a prison to keep her locked away from the world. They just wanted her to stay here and rot. She hated her life. She hated being a humanoid summoner, having barely unleashed her summon to befriend it until she found Nathan's streams. Chu Ran sat on her bed, took her phone and went to Nathan's page, clicking on one of his most popular videos, which was the Twin Red Gates in Athens. She saw Godfrey emerging from the gate with rows of knights awaiting him, while Greece's top summoners came out, saved by a humanoid summoner. Maybe he wasn't perfect. Maybe he did some wrong she couldn't agree with. He still did some good that affected millions positively. Beyond that, Godfrey was the missing piece that finally made Chu Ran see her summon differently, as she realized. This summon that had been bound on by the authorities, that had been kept weakened, might not be hers at the end of the day. He was the strongest of the dawn of origins. Will he vanish or still shine in this coming dawn? She bit her lower lip. Then Chu Ran turned to a golden diagram, a portal she opened. At the top of the portal was a flail. A sharp-faced woman, 12 feet tall, stepped out. She was muscular, yet a sight to behold. Her short white hair had an asymmetrical cut, with the left forward fringe covering her left eye. The top was packed like a high ponytail, but her hair wasn't long to make a proper ponytail, even a short one. This summon looked like someone who didn't prioritize appearance yet stood out. She wore an asymmetrical cloth wrap, tunic-like, a single piece diagonally across her chest, a tight-fitting structured leather piece around her midsection. It was reinforced with vertical seams and studs. The leather piece extended from just under her chest to her waist. A bulky metal plate mounted her shoulder, and her left forearm was wrapped in cloth bandages. A heavy metal chain looped across her hips, hanging down. Below it was a short battle skirt. Overall, she was dressed like a gladiator, a knight that had fallen to the ranks of a slave. During the ruination, she left after her troop lost a battle. The scene where she stood in a battlefield littered with corpses reflected in her eyes. She once fought for the unknown king, but he wasn't even real. The knight that buffed them, he who carried the flag of the order, the one that had great faith in the unknown king, had died, and few generals had left. With all these clouding her mind, she ripped off her armor, stripped off her identity, and walked away. She ended up as a slave, a willing slave, fighting in the scorched lands, yet death refused to come. So she allowed herself to be killed by another. Once this knight dreamt of kneeling before the unknown king and being bestowed a true name. That dream made her rise to the rank of a grand general. That honor was all, to kneel before the greatest being in Patan. Yet now that being who she thought a lie was before her eyes, he lived, so it was all a test. Those in the video must have got their true names, meaning they were on the path to becoming royalty. She failed. She was nothing more than a slave now. "Do you want to go to your king, help him maintain his strength?" Chu Ran asked. "I won't. Breaking my connection with you might kill us both." "But you belong there with your king." "Not anymore." This knight had died a slave and now lived as a slave. This was punishment. At least she would accept this faithfully. Her only wish was that her brothers and sisters who left would see this, would see the unknown king. The one prophesied to begin the imperial rule, Patan's first emperor, he who would raise them from nobility to royalty, wasn't a lie. She had seen him, and he was truly majestic indeed. Ronald heard a knock and opened the door, his eyes narrowing at the sight of Saul and two towering knights by his side. Ever since Saul came, he did a little research about this great captain the entire paradise was excited about. It turned out Saul was a quad summoner, a man with 4 humanoid summons, all of which he set loose, rarely retrieving them to his soul space. A quad summoner was beyond rare, and in cases like this, a summoner who had 4 powerful summons with the last one never being seen was more of a threat than his summons. But what was this man, whom he had rejected several times, doing at his home? I had to come in person to request your aid. The cohort is about to set out. We're going to open a gate into the world of orcs, and I would like someone that knows the terrain more than the rest of us to come along. I'm sorry, but no. Ronald was about to close the door, but Abaddon held it, his eyes clashing with Ronald's. With a soft grunt, Abaddon ripped it off when Ronald wasn't willing to let go. This isn't a request. I had a feeling you wouldn't understand. You're a hero, you can be welcomed back to the world at any time, but the rest of us are fugitives. If you want to contribute to this society, join this raid, Saul said to him. Ronald's eyes narrowed. You're attacking worlds, I'm against that. You have 2 days, you don't have a choice, your wife is coming along. Saul tilted his head. She's the best healer around, and she'll need her husband to defend her against those brutish orcs, won't she? Saul turned. Abaddon and Apollyon exchanged looks. According to the law of the Golden Order, invading other worlds was forbidden. They were knights, they were defenders, not those that started chaos. That ideal went deep, but they were not of the Order anymore. The Black Order eliminated all threats no matter the cost, or whatever it would take. They had done this for decades. Then just why did the Golden Order law spring up in their hearts? Abaddon knew, and despite Apollyon's coldness, the same thought in his heart burned in hers. What are you doing? Saul's voice rang, and both of them turned away from Ronald, who expected a fight. Stay here, Saul said to the knights as he walked into the meeting hall where all the elite class were gathered, and shut the door. Outside, Abaddon stood on one end of the door while Apollyon was at the other end. Abaddon knew what they had done. He could remember it. He and Apollyon had ravaged cities, farmlands, and storehouses under Saul's command just to get to their actual target. This wasn't their first time invading a world. They had been doing it with Saul for decades. His methods were effective, but something odd stirred in his heart. After seeing the Golden Order knights, anger consumed him. He hated the unknown king with every fiber of his being, didn't he? But why? Was it because, if the unknown king had been there from the start, he would not have turned his back on his brothers? He wouldn't have shattered an oath he held for centuries. The sight of the Golden Order knights filling up that fortress made memories of the past resurface. Abaddon turned to Apollyon. The unknown king is nothing but a lie. Apollyon shut down the conversation before it ever started. After a moment, her lips moved. That child isn't of Patan blood. He's not the legendary king who has chosen us to be pillars for a great empire. He's not the one we were told about, deceived to pledge allegiance to believe in his unfathomable might. Her eyes gleamed. I could feel he can't even resist my ice. That's not the kind of king I dreamt of. She scowled. The others are weak. They've always been weak. So, Abaddon's deep voice rang from his faceless mask. You were thinking about him too. Apollyon turned her head toward him. She said nothing, but the chill around her became piercing. The next day, while Isolde faced a bloody battle against dragons, king of beasts, willing to evolve since she gave her order that none should help, and Godfrey prepared to, for the first time, witness a knight be created, Lucy sat in a large cafeteria in the camp. Arden and Oliver shared the same table with her. Thalia walked over with her tray and dropped it as she went over the bench and sat with one leg crossed over the other. Everyone is talking about it. We're going to open a dungeon and invade a world. We spent so much time defending ourselves from those monsters, and now we're going to do the same thing. I get the reason, but it still feels wrong. Thalia sighed and dug into her food. Lucy frowned. This isn't right. They're orcs. Do you know what those things have done to us? The lives they've taken. Orcs show no mercy. They're an invasive race that can multiply even faster than us. Lucy was stunned to sense such hostility from Arden. It was unlike her. The captain knows what he's doing. He knows we won't resist the urge to avenge what those orcs have done. I can't resist. Arden rose to her feet and walked away with her tray. Lucy looked at her until she was gone. An orc killed her big brother. Orcs and trolls, their horde has caused so much death. Arden is just one of the victims. Oliver looked at Lucy. Prepare yourself, you're enlisted. No more fixing vehicles and staining yourself with oil. You're a fully realized Lord Tier summoner, and that power will be of great use in battle. If you do well, you could be given a Paragon Core and your summon might evolve. Lucy forced a smile. It's been a little tough after what Isaac did. All that dislike went toward her. At least they weren't bullying her since she wasn't exactly weak, but the environment wasn't cheerful anymore. Especially now that she was alone. Being under vehicles and talking to the cars was where she found peace. She sighed. Later on, Lucy walked into the room where she stayed with another girl. The other girl who was about to leave scowled at Lucy before walking away. Lucy collapsed on the bed, her hair sprawled on the pillow. At least not every single member of the cohort treated her this way. She was still quite close with the engineers, and some who forgave Isaac still greeted her. Oliver was cold at first, but he warmed up later. Dax had been distant, but it wasn't because of Isaac. It was because his summoner was available, and no one knew what went on between that summoner and his summon. Suddenly, the door swung open. Lucy thought her roommate had returned, but her eyes widened when she saw Arden and Thalia looking down at her. She blinked several times before she sat up. "I'm sorry for acting that way." Arden sat on the other bed with Thalia. Lucy waved her hand. "You did nothing wrong. Your family was harmed. You're right to be angry." Arden pressed her lips into a thin line. "Still." Thalia groaned. "Can we girls just talk? The world is burdensome already. Let's focus on something else." A mischievous glint flashed in her eyes. "Like your crush on Godfrey." She winked at Lucy, whose eyes widened. Her cheeks reddened. "It's obvious." "Isn't that the same for both of you?" Lucy retorted lightly, but was caught off guard by Thalia's response. "Considering the world we live in, strong boys do stir up a woman's heart." She pouted like a victim. "She's not wrong, but Godfrey is too young for us," Arden said. Thalia rolled her eyes. "He was just born too late. Doesn't stop me from teasing him," she chuckled. "But this isn't about us, it's about you." "Me?" Lucy raised an eyebrow. "You're confused and lonely," Arden sighed. "It's always been obvious, it's even worse now." Thalia sat on Lucy's bed and wrapped her left arm around Lucy's neck, then made Lucy lean on her shoulder. "You can let it out, sweetheart. We're your big sisters." Lucy's eyes softened. "I do like Godfrey. He saved me more than once. He's not bad looking, he cares for me, but there's a difference between like and love." She looked at the window. "Isolde loves Godfrey, I like him. We're different. She has that boss girl kind of energy. She fights against odds despite her privileged family background, and I'm that damsel in distress, waiting to be saved. I adore her." Her eyes flickered. "I've never been given proper attention or care, but Godfrey was the first to give that to me. I can remember how he broke that ice when I thought I'd die. But when I received that attention, I didn't know how to handle it. Later on, I became close with Percival and Isaac, people with great potential, way out of my league, and they fought for my attention. It was surreal." Lucy closed her eyes. "I acted like I didn't know, but I really wanted Percival, yet I felt Isaac would feel bad and he's younger than me. I just couldn't make up my mind until he left. Isaac too. Godfrey and Isolde were also gone, and I became alone again. Sometimes I dream of when we were in school, when we were together. What I see is someone who hasn't found herself. That's why you've made all these mistakes and see yourself as below your friends. Arden adjusted her glasses. You had two excellent choices and you fumbled. It won't do you any good sulking about it. You think you're worth something when your friends are around, when they give you attention, yet in their presence you degrade yourself and become an outcast mentally. Arden chided. Each of them are on their own path and it would bring them together in the end. Now they've all gone for various reasons. Maybe their path is out there, but yours is here because you're here. Make the best of it. Become the best you can be, Lord Tyr or not. And trust me, when you've grown, choosing a guy won't be a problem. Isolde is a perfect example. Godfrey isn't the best looking, but from the little I know, she didn't take a second glance at Percival. It's knowing what your heart wants. Lucy pursed her lips. Thalia ruffled her hair. You're a few months away from 19. Most guys in camp find someone at that age who knows when they're going to die. You're not planning on introducing her to your kind of lifestyle, right? Arden glared at Thalia. What's wrong with my lifestyle? I get all the boys. And you end with none, Arden snickered. I heard the bar for being an elite class has risen, Lucy said before things got heated between Arden and Thalia. We're St. Tyr's now. It took consuming Paragon cores and the captain promised higher ranks after the invasion. You might earn one if you do well. Apparently we're going after a relic. Thalia responded. A relic, is that a dungeon item? Arden shook her head. Far beyond that. The captain said relics are the mana system of the very first world to evolve past maturity and become an ascended world. The first world to have ancient gods. While we are summoners, natives of that race are relic users. Their relics are items that are manifested when they awaken, the same way we get a beast. They get a relic, and we're going after a relic called the soul-piercing rod. Thalia's eyes gleamed. It can destroy the soul of any existence and has no counter. It can be as powerful as the wielder. With that, paradise will be a force even the authorities would be afraid to mess with. Arden rose to her feet. Come train with us. 2 days went by. In a forest with thick tall trees, a 9 feet tall corrupted orc burst out of the forest, falling from a great height, but he was able to land steadily, dust rising as he set his eyes on the settlement made of beast hides and sticks ahead. The orc raced through patrols, gaining stares as every orc, male and female warriors with massive bodies, covered with beast hides, slowly followed. Vashakulahuma, the orc bellowed as he went on one knee before the chief's large tent. 2 orcs, bigger than him, stood at the entrance with weapons made from the bones of large creatures and hardened through orcish means. These orcs were 2 of the strongest in the camp, and they were elected as guards to their chief's tent, the 10th strongest orc on the continent. Orcs absorbed mana into their bodies. They lacked the capacity to use it externally, but it increased their physical capabilities and durability tremendously. At 15, they were already adults, standing at 7 feet with strength rivaling 3 adult Earth males. They grew by age. Those who were 30 were identified with 2 rings and were already paragons. Orcs could live for as long as 200 years, but it was rare to exceed 40 due to their violent lifestyle. It was even worse for corrupted orcs who lusted after bloodshed. Both guards had 2 rings on their tusks, but even their intimidating aura was dwarfed by that of the huge silhouette looming behind the entrance, his bright green eyes gleaming from the darkness. Vu, his deep voice boomed. Vase Lahumas and Shakva, the 9 feet behemoth of an orc, spoke softly, his head bowed low. His words, on the other hand, riled up the crowd behind him. Even the eyes of the orc chief brightened. He emerged from the tent. All the orcs raised their weapons, their roars rippling through the air as their chief looked at the direction the orc pointed at. Humans, here in their realm through a red gate. A feast. About a dozen armored trucks built with dungeon metals and powered by dungeon cores to enhance their durability through mana drove out of a large, swirling red gate into a tall grass plain, heading for a forest. The trees of this forest were over 50 feet tall, and the first wave created a vast wall of trees. When the trucks got close, a command was given and they all stopped. There was a truck ahead of all of them. Arden stood on it with a few members of her team, patiently waiting for the main group. Amongst them was Lucy, who was caressing her crab when the main group came through the gate. She saw Captain Saul descend with his second in command, Arnold. As they came from the first vehicle, Ronald emerged from the fourth. I heard it's the captain's first summon that has the ability to open gates to other worlds. I think he might have retrieved that summon. Lucy heard one of her teammates whisper to another. They weren't far from her. One had a snow direwolf and the other had a female kobold shield bearer. Both summoners were females that specialized in the combat department unlike her. I keep hearing his first summon is his strongest, but no one has ever seen it fight. All I've seen, the woman's breath hitched when Abaddon and Apollyon descended. The moment both towering knights graced the field, everyone looked at them. Everything about these knights demanded respect. They felt like commoners looking at true nobility. Lucy's eyes narrowed when Saul walked past her, but when Ronald came along, he smiled, patted her shoulder and continued. A soft smile appeared on Lucy's face as she watched them approach the forest. About 200 feet away from the forest, both men stood, standing side by side. "What do you think?" Saul, who donned an echo of Abaddon's armor, tilted his head toward Ronald. "I've passed through this forest once. It has wild beasts but no orc settlement. But that was a long time ago. Orcs tend to move. It won't be a surprise if a settlement is within this forest," Ronald replied. "Very well then, we'll proceed," Saul replied. Ronald squinted, trying to force down this question, but decided to ask anyway. "Your plan. You're looking for a relic, I understand, but where exactly is this relic?" "Leave that to me, Mr. Hero. I won't lead the cohort to death." Ronald's eyes narrowed, then he turned, about to head back to his truck when Saul spoke. "Your son, he has potential but might be a problem in the future if he continues this path. You should try speaking to him. Fugitives like us should stand together." "He's a grown man," Ronald replied. "There's no doubt he's powerful, but he can't be considered a grown man. With that kind of power, he needs a mentor. A responsibility in paradise is that responsibility. We are all meant to stand together," Saul replied, turning his back on the forest to face Ronald. "You have that responsibility as captain." As Ronald spoke, he sensed something move in the forest. Saul also sensed it. He turned his head toward the forest and saw a corrupted orc close to the edge of the forest. It wasn't just any orc but an Esper. The Esper grinned and countless portals appeared. 400 corrupted orcs, with the shortest being 9 feet tall, emerged. Their aura was suffocating as the faces of Arden's team members changed drastically. A much bigger orc loomed behind them all, his bright green eyes piercing through the trees and locking on the cohort. They knew there was technology and summons on their side, but the moment that orc war chieftain roared, their courage almost shattered completely. "Vushka," the orc war chieftain grunted, and the army split into two, creating a path for their leader. He wrapped his hands around thick chains, dragging a large metal ball with spikes sticking out, through the brown soil as he walked out of the trees. The orc then pointed at Saul and grinned, with a sinister gleam in his eyes. Before Saul could speak, Abaddon walked past him. With each step his armor clinked. Steel rang as he drew out the tomahawk and the double-edged axe. A dark green energy burst out of the orc's right arm and coated the chains down to the round metal ball. The earth around darkened, like it took away the life surrounding it. Abaddon knew he could kill this progenitor in his base form, but he recalled what corrupted orcs had done, how one of them had killed Tempest's partner. He carried her sarcophagus along with Tempest. For that reason, this base form wasn't enough. His aura flared and his armor turned crimson. He looked like death in the form of a huge armored crimson knight, but this was far from the end of it. Abaddon activated the skill of the existence fused within him and shifted into his first form. A bright light burst out of him, and when it died out, in Abaddon's place stood a 14 feet tall true orc. It had light brown skin, the first of the orc kind. What Abaddon had transformed into was a horde chieftain with 4 rings in his tusks and 1 more at his ears. This orc had full white beard cut short and long white hair. In a race that barely reached 50, this one surpassed it. 3 rings meant 40 years with the strength and durability of a progenitor. 4 meant the orc was 50 years old, the 5th at the ears meant 60. This was an ancient god-ranked being, a monarch tier orc, and not just any orc but an orc horde chieftain. The sight of Abaddon made all the orcs shiver. Corrupted orcs, blood-lusted and battle-blinded creatures supposedly immune to fear, felt dread. A horde chieftain was one of the epitome of strength. They ruled the orc world. The orcs were not the only ones affected. Even the members of the cohort felt an unexplainable chill. Ronald frowned. Only Saul knew Abaddon wasn't at that level yet, but his potential was in the ranks of ancient gods, and he wasn't far away. The brutal strength of his shifts would be seen today. Good, the cohort needed a glimpse of his strength. You fear one orc, the orc war chieftain bellowed, facing his army. Abaddon could understand what he said. Do I have your permission to kill? He tilted his head toward Saul, who chuckled. By all means. With a roar, the orc chieftain charged at Abaddon, who slowly walked toward him. When Abaddon was within range, the orc war chieftain swung his flail at him. It descended with great force, but Abaddon sidestepped, then slammed his foot into the ball, which had opened a massive hole on the ground. The moment he slammed his foot into the flail, the spikes flattened as it lurched back with great speed. The war chieftain narrowly evaded it, his eyes wide. You're a disgrace to that weapon. Abaddon's voice rang. He knew of a terror, the morning star flail knight, the eclipse of death. Compared to her, this orc, this 10th strongest being, was pathetic. Abaddon flung his tomahawk at the war chieftain, his eyes gleaming as the chieftain deflected the blow, launching the tomahawk into the air. With a few steps, Abaddon closed in, swinging his axe at the orc, who tightened his grasp around 2 ends of his chain. Sparks flew as he blocked the axe. Is that all a horde chief can do? The orc couldn't finish his question when Abaddon grabbed the tomahawk that was descending and plunged it into the chieftain's skull. He sighed. Basically, he didn't even use his strength. All Abaddon did was mock the battle experience of an orc war chieftain. His grasp around the handle of his axe tightened and he swung it, this time with some power. It split the orc he fought, cut down no less than 50 trees and took the lives of 100 orcs. Lucy watched towering trees fall as blood spurted from the standing corpse of 100 huge orcs. Was this the strength of one, just one of the captain's summons? The other orcs were about to flee, but Apollyon slammed her staff against the ground and a tall wall of ice rose up. Vagabonds, Saul roared, eyes bright. Shall we begin? Captain! 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 The vagabonds chanted vigorously as they either sent their summons or used their weapons to face the remaining orcs. 2 orcs, the chieftain's guards, found themselves blocked away, and someone appeared at the only way to exit this ice dead end. Both of them stared at each other before looking at this 9 feet tall knight clad in black armor. A woman, one of them scowled. Apollyon understood them. Unfortunately, they didn't understand why she was given the name Apollyon, especially since she was the founder of the Black Order. One of the orc guards leaped while the other barreled toward her. Apollyon watched them get close before ice trapped them. The first orc guard was still mid-air as ice came from the ground and froze him right up to his chest, leaving his arms and head, but the cold might as well have killed him almost instantly. The other one had his axe high, ready for a powerful downward swing when that arm froze and his feet also froze. Thick chunks of ice covered both the arm and his feet. Purple marks, like their veins being damaged, spread out like wildfire. The curse of Apollyon's ice. I could shatter you into 1,000 ice shards, but wasting paragons isn't really wise. Her lips moved as she drew near. With a light tap of her staff, a fog of ice mist engulfed both of them. It cleared out after a while, revealing two blue-skinned orcs with white eyes billowing with ice mist. Their weapons were now made of her ice, and their muscular bodies were covered with hardened ice armors. Billowing with mist so cold the air froze, these armored orcs emitted a terrifying aura. Apollyon's lips curled into a thin smile. An hour later, all the trucks continued their journey into the forest. "Take a look at that." One of Arden's regulars pointed at the window. Lucy looked and saw an armored orc billowing with ice mist barreling through the forest, keeping up with their pace. It bulldozed trees, leaving them completely frozen. Lucy's eyes widened. "There's another one here." Another girl pointed at the other window. "The captain is on another level. I thought Captain Arian's Ronin was awesome, but those knights are beyond awesome," she said with bright eyes. "Those orcs won't know what hit them." The man driving the vehicle chuckled while Arden, who sat beside the driver, smiled a bit. "Why do they seem so similar to Godfrey's knights?" Lucy wondered. "That ice also reminds me of Isolde." Her eyes flickered. "I wish I could bring back the dead." Smoke rose up in a battle-torn barren land. Isolde stood in the midst of huge dragon corpses, 24 to be exact, their bodies casting dark shadows on her small form. Sweat coated her skin, her hair was disheveled, and though she stood straight, holding a spear with the tip toward the ground, Isolde knew she was at the verge of collapsing. She won. There were cores around her. 9 were from top-level paragons, 15 from top-level origins, those who thought she was tired and swooped in for the kill. Blood dripped from her hands. The force of swinging her spear against those hard scales split her palms. 3 days. Isolde had been fighting for 3 days straight. With all these cores and battle essence gain, her tier would soar tremendously. Isolde took the risk, but it was worth it. She gasped, eyes wide as a long, sharp icicle pierced through her right thigh. Isolde's eyes widened as she fell on one knee, struggling to support herself with the spear. Turning, her eyes met Sylphiette, gazing down at her from the hill she stood on. Sylphiette, her eyes trembled. "I do admire you, mother, but between serving you and becoming the mate of the father of dragons, it's obvious which is better." Her vast wings spread out. "Hold yourself, little one, or I shall crush your head if you interfere." Sylphiette glared at Grace, ice gathering in the depths of her throat. Sylphiette breathed ice, engulfing the entire battlefield with spiked ice. This wasn't betrayal, it was survival of the fittest. And she, the freezing omen, was the fittest. Sylphiette was the freezing omen, the second biggest dragon in Isolde's domain, a creature that once froze an entire continent out of spite. After Isolde's rise, her tier had shot up to a top-level progenitor tier. Her blue eyes alone emitted an oppressive aura that almost petrified Isolde with fear as Sylphiette descended into the battlefield. With a roar, she unleashed her ice dragon breath. Dragon breath was different from normal elements. Their flames were different, and so were their ice, as it bore the superior traits of the dragon race. Isolde forced her wings to move. She ascended with great speed, but ice gathered on her wings, forcing Isolde to fall. Sylphiette flew upward, mouth wide open, countless fangs awaiting Isolde to fall into her maw. When Isolde was close, she formed a violet ball and tossed it into Sylphiette's mouth. In this domain, Isolde had almost unlimited mana but not stamina. She felt heaviness and intense pain moving her body, but the moment the violet ball exploded in Sylphiette's mouth, she felt relieved. Unfortunately, Sylphiette's half-burnt face began to heal. She shut her mouth as Isolde was within the confines of her fangs, but just before her fangs collided, Isolde teleported. She reappeared mid-air, her senses all over the place. She began to spiral down once more. Her eyes went to Sylphiette and Isolde's mind controlled her spear. It launched forward, piercing deep into Sylphiette's right eye. The dragon roared, slapping the mother of dragons with her huge tail, a blow she didn't see coming due to her dulled perception. The air tore apart as Isolde flew, opening holes through several rock formations before crashing several times and sliding to a stop, her wings torn apart. Blood poured from her mouth as she noticed not only had the spikes in Sylphiette's tail ripped her abdomen open, it made her unable to feel her legs. If she died here, that was it. This was her soul which Sylphiette would have to devour to gain a humanoid form. If she survived by a miracle, her place here was gone. She won't even have access to the domain, thus losing everything, even Grace and Nyx. Isolde could feel life slipping out of her. Sylphiette, roaring with rage, glided above her, casting a mighty shadow over Isolde. The freezing omen landed, lowering her head as she brought one limb forward. That action made ice spread out, swallowing Isolde's legs, causing her to scream out for the first time. "Where is the will I saw when you faced the mother of dragons, usurper?" Sylphiette roared as the ice shattered, taking with them Isolde's legs. The pain overwhelmed Isolde. Her emotions filled with rage, resentment, and a strong will to survive made her eyes lock on the spear still plunged into Sylphiette's right eye. Drawing a deep breath, Isolde forced the spear deep into Sylphiette's eye until it reached her brain. The huge dragon screamed and roared, but was unable to stop the spear from piercing her brain. She collapsed beside Isolde, one huge blue eye still gazing at her mother. All the negativity Isolde felt from Sylphiette cleared up. "I admire your desire to get stronger, to rebuild my kind, our kind. You lack the heart to take decisive steps. Those dragons won't be enough for your growth, and the father of dragons will soon send his followers here, so I did it for you, mother. I gave you strength. Take my core. Feel no remorse. I shall hear of your achievements from the afterlife world." Sylphiette's voice rang in Isolde's mind as her core gathered above her and descended on Isolde's limb. Isolde's eyes moistened, but she couldn't say a word. Her eyelids grew heavier and heavier until darkness consumed her whole. Grace and Nyx brought all the cores, and the cores slowly dissolved into her body, while Luther stood guard, unleashing a terrifying roar that said whoever was still interested would face him. In the darkness Isolde was in, she saw the vague silhouette of someone, a female. A queen. 3 days later, a fair clawed hand grabbed the edge of an active volcano which had just erupted, with magma flowing down the huge volcano. Isolde pulled herself up and stood on her 2 feet, magma dripping from her naked body. The texture of her hair was beyond the known. It had a texture so soft that idols would go crazy over. Everything had changed. Her senses were keen, so keen her perception before now seemed dull. It was like her old body had died, and she was reborn with fire and gold. Running down this volcano wasn't just magma, but also molten gold. Riches were a peculiar trait of the dragon kind, one that was as known as their might. There were golden royal marks, like tears of gold below her eyes. 2 long golden earrings were attached to her ears, reflecting like golden mirrors. A segmented golden neck collar went around her slender neck, merging beauty and gold into something perfect. Isolde recalled the woman she saw looked similar. Right now, she looked like a piece of art that took centuries to sculpt with details in the minutest part. She was now a matriarch, a mother, and a ruling authority, a lawmaker and a domain builder. Isolde looked at what her evolution had caused. Hundreds upon hundreds of eggs, the biggest being a few 100 feet tall, were absorbing the magma pouring out from the volcano. All these were her dragons that would soon be reborn. Previously, they couldn't grow in this domain, but now it was different. Isolde closed her eyes. She could see the entire domain from above, and there was a vast expanse of grasses, towering forests that used dragon fire as special nourishments. There was also the Icelands, a part of her domain reserved for ice dragons. In the forest, the grasslands, the Icelands, there were lots of creatures. Some looked like rhinos and bulls, but much bigger with tougher hide. Some were lower species of dragons like the worm, wyverns, and drakes. Praise for her dragons to hunt. There was even a forest of clouds. Isolde felt surprised to see something so otherworldly, but that wasn't all. Thousands of hoard mountain peaks filled with countless riches filled her domain. An ecosystem had finally formed. Her dragons, once hatched, could claim their hoard mountain or fight to claim better ones to enrich themselves. The stronger a dragon got, the more they wanted to enrich themselves because, at a certain point for some of them, their power rose with their wealth. Isolde knew within her. She was now a titled god, just the surface but still a god. Her entire being radiated sophisticated regality and majestic superiority. Her beauty surpassed the standard of Earth's top idols. The golden tattoo below her eyes made her look like a prize, a vessel to be admired. But sadness was in the eyes of this beautiful creature. Sylphiette, meanwhile, a golden-haired man stood in a dark place, his arms crossed. There was a rift in the middle of this place, and he stood at the edge, his eyes reflecting what was within this rift. Trees grew out of the walls, like the earth had split open to reveal what was hidden at its depth. The fallen leaves of these trees formed several rings which were engulfed with the golden glow of a dome at the very bottom of this rift. From above, the dome looked like a ball of gold with metal ring structures crossing over themselves above it. But this was actually a vast platform, a sanctified space where noble knights were made. It was supported with a great amount of mana that could drain Godfrey in a split second if he was the source. Victoria, who wore a white tunic gown, laid on a stone bed, while 3 apostles pierced their sword into holes meant to accommodate them. Godfrey watched as a heart hovered above Victoria, while the dome glowed bright, empowered by the apostles pouring mana into the platform. The sight of the false heart made Godfrey's eyes narrow. It was black with white veins. This was the core of Patan's mana system. A heart that allowed them to absorb a great amount of mana into their bodies, and also increased their lifespan by a few centuries. Bright light engulfed the false heart, and it phased through Victoria's chest. The alchemists could see through her flesh. Their eyes saw everything, from flesh to her skeletal structure. With meticulous precision, the false heart was planted. In an instant, a network of white veins spread throughout her body. The massive amount of mana gathered in the platform was absorbed by the runes on the stone bed and into her body. Flooded by mana, the white veins glowed even brighter, and the false heart began to beat. It took quite some days, but she was able to spend 2 decades in treacherous terrains fighting and learning from all we gathered from her predecessor. The chief alchemist voice rang. He appeared out of nowhere, standing beside Godfrey. It will take an entire day for her body to adjust to the false heart. I'll wait then, Godfrey replied. The chief alchemist smiled. She won't turn out like the 8th Night, she'll emerge with Patan blood. Isolde, what was different with her? Godfrey raised an eyebrow. She was dead, her soul was bound within the creature that came for her. We only removed her original heart and replaced it with that of an apex dragon species. The dragon heart formed its own network, so we couldn't add the false heart. That was why she couldn't grow to our desired height. The chief alchemist explained. Her body had already gained draconic enhancements before then. She's already 7 feet tall. Godfrey's lips twitched. He couldn't imagine Isolde being as tall as Dirge. She was almost 3 feet taller than him. His head only reached her waist. We also considered you, so the outcome was welcomed. The chief alchemist added. Godfrey didn't know what to feel. They considered his shortness. But he wasn't short. Patan humans were just ridiculous compared to Earth humans. After waiting for an entire day, Godfrey returned to the edge of the rift and saw Victoria. Her hair was now white, and she had grown to a towering 10-foot-tall woman. The false heart was responsible for this. The surge of mana enhanced her bone structure, strengthened its density, her organs, muscles, and brain. There was something about that heart that carried the signature of the origin of Patan's system, which were the alchemists. Whoever had the heart would undoubtedly become a Patan, half Patan at least. This time around, Godfrey stood alone as the chief alchemist, and the others joined the first three. They stretched their arms wide, and the huge phoenix was dissolved into blue flame-like mist. The mist formed a circle above them. Godfrey couldn't explain how they transformed a creature of flesh and blood into this mist-like substance, but it looked like a state where they could fuse an entire creature with a knight. These alchemists, they were as unfathomable as the mana tree itself. He could understand why the immortal armor said the mana tree kept creating anomalies after anomalies. These 10 are what its due made. The apostles unleashed more mana, their thick mane fluttering as they began to chant in the Patan tongue. The runes on the metal rings glowed, responding to their voices. It took hours before the last mist entered her body. "It's done," the chief alchemist's voice rang. Just then, Godfrey found himself in his soul space, right at the end of Isolde's hall. There was a hallway beside the alchemist's door. He walked to the end of the hallway and found a huge door with the image of a rapier. His eyes automatically went to the monolith beside the door. Name: Knight General of the Golden Order. Type: Hybrid. Tier: 26 Mid-Level Paragon. Potential: 33.5 Titled God Tier. Description: An Earth female now turned Patan native, skilled with the deadly rapier. Once its rune is activated, the rapier becomes a whip. This knight, like her male counterparts, possesses enhanced physical capabilities which is increased in blackout state. In blackout state, this knight sprouts 2 pairs of phoenix wings and has access to one of the 25 hottest flames across all worlds. Once linked with a mate, their minds connect, increasing their capabilities in battle. "This is it," Godfrey said upon summoning Tempest. He opened the door and saw a crimson knight seated on her throne, legs wide with the rapier between her legs as she grabbed the thin blade with her gauntleted hands. Her long white hair was tied with a cloth close to the end, so it wouldn't affect her during battle. Her armor was exactly like her predecessor, the thorn helmet barely revealing where the eye slits were. She exuded the aura of a noble, the pride of a phoenix swirling around her like an atmosphere generated from her presence itself. An alchemist stood at the bottom of the dais with a royal apostle, both awaiting Godfrey's arrival. Victoria rose to her feet, the feather padding around her shoulder, transforming into blue flames that then formed 4 massive wings behind her. The pride of a phoenix became even more obvious with the flames swirling around her. She didn't fly but walked down, her armor clinking softly with each step. Then she knelt on one knee, lifting her head to gaze at Godfrey instead of bowing. Her lips moved. "Thank you." Godfrey's eyes went wide. "Why, you remember," she responded with a nod. "I thought about you and your mom every night before sleeping to keep myself sane. I know it hasn't been long, yet a part of me believes I haven't seen you for 2 decades. It makes me feel strange that you still look the same." The oath, the alchemist spoke as he stood beside her. It was time. Any more and the castle itself would chain and erase her. Only knights who have sworn the oath and were named were permitted to stay. Victoria bowed her head. "I am the rapier of the king. My blade shall heed his call. My heart beats to fulfill his desire upon his foes. I swear this oath, and may the apostles have my head the day I rebel against his royal majesty." The alchemist nodded. "With this, Unless stopped by the king himself, the royal apostles would hunt her to the ends of any world and take her head the day she rebelled. One mistake, just allowing one night to go while restraining the apostles, caused widespread defections, crippling the order. The alchemist turned to Godfrey. "Crest her with a name." Godfrey summoned a longsword and placed it on her shoulder. "From this moment henceforth, your Patan name shall be Toria." He placed the sword on the left shoulder. Godfrey didn't name Victoria blindly. No, he did a little thinking this time. Toria meant bird, conqueror, and victory. It represented her current state as a phoenix and a knight. It was as if from the beginning, Victoria was meant to take on this mantle. Toria's eyes brightened. She felt an unexplainable connection with Godfrey at this moment, and as she lifted up her head, a gauntleted hand was stretched out. That hand didn't belong to Godfrey. It belonged to Tempest. Toria held it and rose to her feet. A bright glow emanated from their joined hands as tendril lightning wings sprouted from Tempest's back. The light grew brighter, causing Tempest's tendril wings to grow from 4 tendrils on each side to 5. It also became thicker and much longer, vibrating and humming with so much energy the floor trembled. Tempest and Toria rose into the air. Blue flames came out of her while lightning swirled around him. Both elements moved around each other with the knights within the circle. The right wall crumbled with great rumbling sounds. Godfrey saw Tempest's chamber move closer and closer until it fused with her chamber, creating one massive hall with 2 thrones. Tempest rose from a throne tier all the way to become a mid-level paragon, with the potential of a titled god. His tattered hood burnt off, a golden helmet covering his head, replacing his former mask. There were thin vertical openings in the visor of the helmet with a dark horizontal slit for his eyes. His white hair came down from the helmet, covering the chainmail around his neck. The golden metal ring above his head unleashed a golden glow that swept through the hall. Finally, his golden eyes pierced through the darkness of the slit. It burned with intensity and resolve. "Here," Mountain's deep, cracked voice rang as he tossed his spear at Tempest. The moment Tempest grabbed the spear, it changed. The long shaft had spiral patterns, one that ensured great damage when pulling out of a foe. The normal spearhead transformed into that of a greatsword's blade. Lightning crackled through its length as Tempest brandished it. "Apologies, my king." Mountain bowed, turned, and left. Godfrey tilted his head. Was there something about that spear he didn't know about? His knights were slowly showing more about themselves. To think Mountain would come here on his own. Both knights descended, deactivated their blackout states, and their armor became gold once more. "Your Majesty," they said at the same time, tuning their voice in such a way that it flowed out smoothly. He wanted to test them out. The feeling he had when he summoned his first knight returned. His hands trembled. Godfrey couldn't wait. It was time for massive dungeon raiding. Earth just changed. He would get the first kill of the most important dungeons and close them down. What excited him even more was that Isolde had risen to become a 32.6 titled god. The titled god tier began at 32.6, meaning she just took a step into the tier. On the other hand, Tempest's rising, Toria's 10% and Isolde's addition shot him straight to 34.1, a 34.1 titled god. That explained the tremendous surge of strength flowing within his body at this moment. Something must have happened in the dragon domain to make Isolde rise this fast. He also noticed the titled god tier was from 32.640, almost the same amount of energy needed to move from low tier to the peak of the high tier. Moving through higher tiers wouldn't be as easy since the energy needed would keep increasing, but lucky for him, Ballista could give him another big boost once he managed to lift him to become a general. Mountain too, but he had to figure out how to exceed that max level. But at least now, he wouldn't be left behind. the strength to explore the new deadly dungeons on Earth and also slowly take back Patan was within him. It was time to put his knights to the test. Most of them have grown but never been in situations that forced out their full strength. Especially Solstice, a knight with the humanoid dragon state and the true dragon state, both of which could boost his tier way beyond what the blackout state could do. Dirge had a whole shadow wraith army. There are no more doors, the alchemist spoke. Godfrey looked at him. What? You need your authority, your throne for the castle to accept the chambers of the rebel knights on your orders. Without it, you won't exceed this level, the alchemist said. So, I need to face that being. Godfrey's eyes narrowed. I need to face the unknown king if I want access to the other 8 doors. Beautiful creatures walked through the hallway of an elegant castle. The sun shone on these high elf ladies whose presence made elven soldiers bow their heads. Have you seen him? One of the ladies asked the other. They were ladies-in-waiting for the queen of the realm and were one of the races that could be considered an ascended world. The mysterious visitors. The other woman raised an eyebrow. Come here. The first elf lady dragged the other one, and they hid behind a door, peeking at a man in a small hall fumbling with a small clay figurine. It said their power is so unique they can create life from mere clay. The first lady whispered as they watched the golden-haired handsome man who had several clay streaks on his face and body. That's absurd, the second lady scowled. They're wandering gods from one of mankind's worlds, I hear. The queen told him to make the strongest knight to prove his capability, and all he asks is to examine our god knights and watch them use their skills. Quite plain if you ask me. The first lady responded, sounding dubious. Anything made of clay might as well be a golem, but this man claimed to be able to birth life. That was a very outrageous claim. If he could do it, he would be coveted by the queen and other powerful gods might want him. Aren't there supposed to be 2 of them? The second just finished speaking when they sensed a presence behind them. They quickly turned and saw a man with long black hair tied into a ponytail. He wore a white shirt, sleeves folded. The shirt was tucked into his black pants. He flashed a warm smile. Ladies. Loud sounds rang as some figures fell from the table as the golden-haired man collapsed. His eyes widened at the sight of them, while the elf ladies covered their mouths. My partner is quite clumsy. I'm Cain, he's Gabriel, care to join us? The elf ladies fled with their faces hot with embarrassment. Cain maintained his smile until he closed the door. The bearing of Gabriel, who had looked all innocent and clumsy a moment ago, changed. He straightened his back, while Cain's smile vanished. How many elven tree knights can you create now? He asked Cain. None has shown up. I'll have to lure them with something worth their interest. It cost a lot to get here. We can't return with little gain. Even he had to advance. With the mana tree pulling the strings, not even the likes of him could sit back and cross his hands. After all, he understood the concept of control stood on the ground of strength. For that reason, he had laid out a calculated plan. This was the first time he had entered an ascended world with this body and walked in the palace of a god-queen tier existence. Yet he didn't feel fear. It felt like when the apocalypse happened on Earth. People were a resource that made him stronger. While they fought, he watched and created. The countless worlds were an endless source of resources to grow. The only difference was Patan, a world with such more strength to offer, yet he couldn't create what made them unique. He needed an alchemist. Is he back in paradise? Not yet, but when the time comes, I shall set off another trigger, Gabriel replied. He's unaware he's being groomed to become the same general who will march under our command to conquer all worlds. It's his fate, Cain replied. Lately, he's a bit secretive, both of them said, looking at each other. Cain's summon was literally one of a kind as his soul took the shape of a race that was created as a god. Others grew to become gods. He worked his way back to being a god, and now began to evolve to become an even stronger and more powerful being. This was the reason he was a favored one. With every generation, the mana tree produced more anomalies. Should Earth not answer its question, the next generation would have an even more monstrous chosen and favored ones. But Cain wasn't willing to let that happen. He planned to grow above the mana tree and stop being within its control. That was his dream, and if it wasn't achievable, he would rule over all worlds. He had read about men of old, people like Alexander the Great of Earth who conquered the known parts of Earth. He would take it a step further, rule Earth as his base, and spread out with the Golden Order Knights, dominating other worlds and building sanctuaries. Godfrey was key to his plans, and for that he must grow, willingly or unwillingly. "Should we go draw him with his mother?" Cain asked. Gabriel shook his head slowly. "No, I want him to know what she is first. There are other targets, let's leave his family for now." Cain chuckled softly. "Oh, the other one then." Valentina strolled through a forest with lots of camps made by the cohort members. After walking for a bit, her eyes became pure white. She could see Godfrey preparing to face the unknown king's presence. She also saw Isolde watching over her eggs. She had just finished her true first level of evolution, and Godfrey was about to face his. "You manipulate and control countless trillions, but I won't be like them. I won't be controlled. I am a god, a true god." A past scene of Cain yelling with defiance made her raise an eyebrow. That was one ambitious creature. She would love to see what he would become. "Val." Ronald's voice rang and Valentina turned, her eyes normal once more. "You're leaving the camp. You could meet an orc. We both know how your son will react if there's a scratch on you," he chuckled. Valentina pouted. "He didn't even stay long when he came over." "There's no need to worry, I can summon him." Ronald revealed a small gold stone. He could simply exchange it for Godfrey. "He might be busy. When we get back, we'll invite him for a family dinner." Valentina replied as she approached her husband, and they both went back to the tent. Godfrey sat in the meeting hall with the alchemist. His first step in repairing the order was to face that presence, and he felt what he was going to meet wasn't going to receive him like a summon. "Once you will it, you'll be in that place. We've done some research. We created the tale of an unknown king that would raise royal knights and establish an empire. Patan's first empire since our world was on the verge of collapse and people wanted hope. We painted this being as all-powerful, unfathomable, and stronger than what they could imagine. That's what millions of knights believed in, and what you might face is a shadow of that belief." The chief alchemist said. Godfrey frowned. "What?" He was going to face a belief made real. An all-powerful, unfathomable being, stronger than what they could imagine. Meaning every knight imagined and believed the unknown king was stronger than them. Every knight. And he was going to face that. No wonder the alchemist sounded like defeating that being was an impossible feat. This was an impossible feat, not when the shadow of that belief is a king. When the shadow of a powerful being claims the throne of a king, just how absurd was that being? But he couldn't fall behind his wife. She was the mother of dragons, and he, though unofficially, was the father of Patan Knights, a legendary order renowned across all worlds since it was the previous chosen world. As he thought about the unknown king, Godfrey suddenly found himself in the throne room. He stood ahead of the door, looking at a hall that wasn't like the others. It looked more like a cavern, a large cavern with a dais made from rocks and a throne carved out of stone. Tens of thousands of knights, all petrified, knelt, bowing to the being on this throne. It was a shadow with bright golden eyes, clad in thick black armor, with one leg crossed over the other. About 30,000 knights were here. The unknown king waved his hand, and all the knights were swept away, leaving an empty cavern behind. He noticed that there were 4 Roman numerals, I, marks carved into the cavern's ceiling. Leave this place or I will kill you. The shadow spoke with unyielding authority. Before Godfrey was the shadow of that unfathomable being. He might face the actual one when he wanted to ascend the imperial throne, but first, he had to go through this one, a mere portion of the unknown king's true power. Yet its aura was oppressive. Seeing Godfrey take bold steps into the cavern, the unknown king brought down his leg, leaning forward. "Heed my warning. That throne belongs to me," Godfrey replied. He tried summoning the immortal armor but was restricted. Then he switched to solstice armor and it worked. Godfrey frowned softly. The alchemist had no idea what would happen when he faced this being, but they expected a contest for the throne. However, Godfrey realized something even more disturbing. His strength as a titled god remained, but blackout state deactivated automatically. He tried using skills, but none worked. Apart from armor and weapons, nothing else worked in this hall. Godfrey held the sword with both hands and took a deep breath as the unknown king rose to his feet, his armor making soft sounds. He calmly descended from the dais. The moment his foot touched the last stair, the unknown king blurred, reappearing before Godfrey, who swiftly swung his sword downward. The unknown king leaned a bit and sprung upward, deflecting the sword with a precise positioning of his pauldron. His own sword went through Godfrey's throat. "Unwise!" The unknown king's voice rang as he slashed through Godfrey's throat, blood splattering on the ground. Those words barely registered in Godfrey's mind when his body dropped to the ground. In the next moment, his eyes snapped open. He clutched his neck, but it was intact. However, the blood was still on the ground, a sign he truly died. He could still remember the pain that shot through his body before death embraced him. Godfrey rose to his feet, his eyes on the returning unknown king who paused on the staircase, tilting his helmet to meet Godfrey's gaze. The air tore apart as the unknown king shot toward him once more. This time around, Godfrey dodged his horizontal slash, spun and slashed the unknown king's rib. The unknown king blocked it, then took a few steps backward to regain balance. Godfrey watched the unknown king pace around him. After inhaling and exhaling several times, Godfrey chose to lunge after the unknown king. He swung his sword downward, and the unknown king met it with a slash of his own. A loud clang resounded through the cavern as a fierce gale blew out. The unknown king suddenly grabbed the blade of Godfrey's longsword and Spartan kicked Godfrey, who was caught off guard. The blow sent him flying backward. The unknown king leaped, lifting his sword up with the tip aiming down at Godfrey, and he pierced through the eye-hole of Solstice's helmet, pinning Godfrey to the ground. With a grunt, the unknown king pulled out the sword, looming above his corpse. It dawned on Godfrey when his eyes opened the second time. "I feel even weaker. Every time I die, I wake up with less stamina. I can't use skills. I'm not fast enough to kill him with my basic abilities. How am I supposed to beat this thing?" He tightened his grip around the sword's hilt, then looked up. The marks on the ceiling remained too. What would happen if all four were gone? Would the castle forever remain broken? Would he die a permanent death? Dying 2 times already made him extremely uncomfortable. "Where are you going? Come here," he roared at the unknown king who was about to sit on his throne. "Your fate was sealed the moment you stepped into my throne room." The unknown king spoke, then moved. Godfrey concentrated to capture his movement, but the unknown king was still a blur. However, he noticed a faint light trailing the unknown king as he moved. Was that because it was made of darkness or something else? He met the unknown king with a wide slash, but the king blocked the slash with his gauntlet, then slashed Godfrey's pauldron. Godfrey swiftly retreated but discovered his shoulder wasn't cut off. It was just the strap, causing his pauldron to fall off, and his chest plate was hanging loosely, only held by the other shoulder. How come the unknown king's sword could cut his armor, but it wasn't the other way around? It couldn't be different in weapons. The unknown king matched his tier. Wind flashed and Godfrey's sword clattered on the ground as the unknown king moved with greater speed, surpassing his previous ones, and pulled out his heart. Godfrey saw it, but that wasn't all he saw. He also saw that faint light. After all the guesses, it finally clicked. That light was mana. The unknown king enhanced his weapon, armor and movement with mana just like a summon. He fought like a summoner who barely used mana for any other thing apart from skills. How could he have known that it could be used to enhance certain moves, since he depended on his physical superiority and overwhelming skills? Mana was the key. His head hit the ground as he saw one more mark erase. Only one remained now. With a gasp, Godfrey's eyes opened once more. A wave of exhaustion hit him as he rose to his knees, his arms trembling as he reached out for the longsword. Just then, the unknown king appeared above him, cloak fluttering as he swung the sword down with great force, aiming to split Godfrey into two. The blow struck, shattering the floor, but Godfrey wasn't there. A thin layer of mana coated his longsword, his eyes locked on the unknown king as mana burst out of his body. So this was how summons suddenly increased their speed. His body suddenly became light. Before his mind could keep up, his sword had slashed the unknown king, but the king tilted backward, hence the tip just scratched his helmet. The earth shattered as Godfrey, unlocking his two cores, shot forward, evading the unknown king's sweep with enhanced speed. He returned the favor with a slash at the king's back. Great amount of mana surged through him, distorting the air around him, yet. Clang! The unknown king blocked it, his eyes gleaming brightly. "Who are you?" he asked, unleashing a massive crescent sword beam that sent Godfrey skidding back. Godfrey dug the fingers of his left hand into the floor, with his sword resting on his shoulder as he skidded backward, his fingers tearing open 5 holes through the floor hard enough to reduce the destructive impact of titled gods. Demigods. I am lord of this castle. You were created to keep my seat warm. Godfrey's words made the unknown king's eyes gleam even brighter. Saying those words before me is no different from welcoming an embrace from death. You have died. As that word die rang out, the unknown king shot toward him, swinging his sword. No, Godfrey swung his sword, hitting the unknown king's sword downward, then leaped and whipped his ironclad foot, wrapped in mana against the king's head. As if that wasn't enough, he spun, kicking him with the other foot. The unknown king flew backwards while he landed on one knee, sweat gliding out of his helmet, then splattered on the ground as he felt even weaker. I am king, I am the real deal. He remained on his knee as the unknown king descended on him once more. Channeling all his strength through his knees, Godfrey sprung up, cutting open the unknown king's chest plate in one blow. The unknown king's downward swing, though weaker, still sliced open Godfrey's own chest plate. Both of them slammed their left foot into the floor and thrusted forward. Their swords scraped each other, generating searing sparks. With a grunt, the unknown king twisted his sword, flinging both their swords away as he went in for a punch. Godfrey retaliated with the same. The air rippled calmly, then suddenly exploded, a fierce gale blasting outward yet still unable to separate both armored entities. One heavy blow after another made the cavern tremble. Rocks fell from above, shattering on the floor. Enough! The unknown king roared, launching a blow to which Godfrey responded with his own. Their gauntleted fists clashed and the floor split, creating a rift between them. Godfrey staggered, falling into the rift while the unknown king watched from above. He summoned an echo of solstice dual blades and plunged them into the wall. He heaved, arms trembling, yet began to climb the wall until he got to the top. The unknown king leaped over to his side, calmly walked a couple of steps before vanishing and reappearing before him to ensure he didn't use his weapons. Godfrey waved to the side, like someone about to fall, Then all of a sudden, the leg that supported his body dug into the floor like an anchor. His right arm, coated with mana, connected with the unknown king's cheek. Then an uppercut followed, lifting the king into the air. "It's my time to rule." Godfrey Spartan kicked him into the rift. He waited until the sound of the unknown king hitting the ground echoed from the depth of the rift. Godfrey turned, dragging his feet toward the throne. When he got to the bottom of the dais, the unknown king walked out from behind the throne. As he descended, Godfrey tightened his fist, but he was too exhausted to lift it properly. The unknown king reached the last staircase, looked at him, and dispersed into black smoke that gathered around him. Godfrey felt a great amount of mana gathering in his body as another core formed above his two cores, his third mana core. Pushing himself, he dropped his sword and went for the throne. A moment later, the huge doors leading to the throne room swung open, revealing the alchemists and the noble knights from Mountain Tutoria. Only Isolde was absent. They saw a dust fog drifting in an enormous hall. It wasn't a cavern anymore, but a hall seemingly built for titans. 2 rows of towering pillars went straight to the 3-meter-tall dais on which a huge throne sat. There were giant knight statues, from mountain even to those that had rebelled, and spaces for generals he might choose to create in the future. The pillars were adorned with gold. A huge gold sun symbol was etched into the polished wall above the throne. The owner of this majestic throne room sat on the throne. He folded his right knee to his chest, placing his foot on the seat while the other foot stayed down. His head leaned back, resting on the backrest, but the gleam of his golden eyes pierced through the fog, resting on them. That was a nonchalant posture, an exhausted king on a prestigious throne that represented an entire race. The eyes of the alchemists widened. He did it. The chief alchemist stammered, his arms trembling as he gazed upon the man on the throne. All the noble knights fell on one knee, great reverence bursting from their hearts. This time, even the alchemist and the apostles knelt, without looking for an excuse to justify it. "The esteemed one, we are honored to welcome you, O known king." The chief alchemist's voice rang aloud. "We greet his royal majesty," the knights chorused. Godfrey didn't reply. He was too exhausted to even show his joy about gaining a third core. However, the light shining at the bottom of Abaddon's statue told all he needed to know. Abaddon was his next knight. Godfrey laid on his bed gazing at the ceiling. His eyes snapped open as scenes of his death kept flashing through his eyes. "Badump." His heartbeat was loud. No, it wasn't. It just felt loud because his sensitivity was high at this moment, as he could almost relive the moment his heart was ripped out of his chest. His neck hurt. The scene of the unknown king's sword piercing through his throat replayed in his mind. Godfrey grabbed his neck when the unknown king slashed half of his neck open. He shut his eyes, breathing heavily. Godfrey had gone to dungeons all this while knowing he could die, but when death finally came, not once but 3 times, it shook him. Death was terrifying. Godfrey stretched his right arm vertically, watching as he clenched and opened his fist. Now more than ever, Godfrey realized death wasn't too far away despite his strength, and no amount of mental preparation could prepare him for the real deal. Still, he sat up, touching his forehead. There were sweat beads on his forehead and his skin was hot. "A fever? Am I that shaken?" Godfrey left the bed and began to do push-ups. "My mind is still weak." 1, 2, 3. At first he focused on doing push-ups to get his mind away and maybe, just maybe, exhaust himself and fall asleep. He switched to using one finger with both hands, but even after crossing the 2,000 mark, his body was still brimming with energy. "I can't believe I'll one day wish for suppressors." Godfrey laid on his back. It was no use. His body had grown so strong that not even 10,000 push-ups might exhaust him to the point of falling asleep. Maybe he should try punching hills and mountains or try splitting rivers. That could probably exhaust him. That was absurd. He could see why even powerful summoners had suppressors. Sometimes people want to feel human again, feel tired again, feel the effort again. It was a human thing. Even the poor, when they became wealthy, sometimes longed for the satisfaction they had over simple things in their past. I have to admit I'm scared, even when I don't want to be. Will I still enter dungeons knowing how terrifying death actually is? Godfrey asked himself and suddenly chuckled. From the depth of his heart, the answer was a yes. His whole being resonated with that response. Yes, he wasn't immune to death. There was probably someone out there whose skill might even kill an immortal, so death would always hang at the horizon, waiting to take a life to the afterlife world. Unfortunately, the fear of death just couldn't stop him. It was unfortunate because Godfrey himself found it absurd that not even his fear could stop him. He was stunned with himself and a little proud. Death, as dreadful as it was helpless in this regard. Godfrey just couldn't stop fighting. Despite the pains and risks, he couldn't stop growing because this world won't allow it. He won't allow it. It wasn't just the world. He yearned to ascend to a place without a name, a tier that couldn't be calculated. He sought after the place where light of recognition stopped, so that control would also cease. And he could finally rest as an unrecognizable being, an uncontainable one. There were forces, lots of forces at play. The mana tree was the architect, an entity that would do anything, use anyone to achieve its goal, an evil even he couldn't despise. As his fear died under his resolve, sleep finally came, but a silhouette appeared on the sofa by the second window. Her elegant figure basked under the moonlight as her golden ornaments gleamed softly. Sleep left Godfrey's eye as if blown away by a sudden breeze. Isolde approached him and sat on the floor. Frey. Her sweet voice echoed several times in his ears, but it couldn't pull him out of his spellbound state. His pupils dilated as her gorgeous face reflected in his eyes. Isolde's eyelashes were longer than before, like artificial eyelashes, but hers were so delicate they drew him into her eyes. The golden tear tattoo, so delicately drawn into her face, made her like some kind of goddess in human form. Was this Isolde? Was this his wife? When did he marry this radiant queen? You're Isolde, right? He blinked twice. Isolde raised an eyebrow, tucked her hair behind her ear as she tilted her head. Are you okay? She asked, placing her palm on his forehead. Isolde's eyes widened. Godfrey almost gasped at how her face changed into a more expressive and breathtaking one. You have a fever, Isolde gasped. He suddenly dragged her, making her lie on his chest, then whispered into her ear. It's you. Isolde blushed. However, Godfrey noticed that Isolde was quite tense. He felt a hard impact, an instinctive move to defend herself, but she realized in less than a second. Yet couldn't stop her hand from hitting his chest, even if the blow wasn't as hard as it was meant to be. They both had their guard down around themselves. Both of them could toss each other around, but it was different this time. There was slight resistance from her. Something must have happened in the dragon domain. Godfrey caressed her hair. It felt good caressing her hair, and as his hand glided down her back, Isolde slowly closed her eyes. When Godfrey felt her melt completely into his embrace, he spoke softly. What happened? Isolde's eyelids trembled, and her eyelashes became moist. Sylphiette, I killed her. He was a listening ear, calm, silent and comforting as she poured her heart out. Behind this physical beauty that could make anyone swoon was an internal mess, a young woman filled with guilt and pain. It's not your fault, Godfrey said at the end. Isolde didn't reply, she just remained in his arms until she slept off. Godfrey gently tucked her into the bed using his telekinetic skill, kissed her forehead, then telekinetically made a sofa glide over. He sat on the sofa, watching Isolde sleep for hours. That was when Godfrey saw something he didn't believe had been obvious since. Isolde's fingers were empty, all 10 of them, not one told a tale of him. Just what had he been doing? She did serve herself to him on a silver platter because he was a terrible lover. Eventually, he slept off after packing about for a long time, racking his head about a ring. He even checked the size of Isolde's finger several times and made sure he memorized it. As the sun rose, Isolde's eyes slowly opened. The reflection of Godfrey sleeping on the sofa appeared in her eyes. She carried him, laid him on the bed, sat on the edge and brushed his hair aside. Godfrey's looks had barely changed. It just grew sharper as he got older. He relied on his innate looks, which were handsome by normal standards, but nothing compared to Percival, Snow, and the likes of John who enhanced his looks. Yet she could stare at this face all day and not get bored, fantasizing about him. To Isolde, Godfrey was the most perfect man. When he smiled, it was like the clouds parting, revealing the bright, warm rays of the sun. And his blue eyes, gleaming like the sparkling surface of a tranquil ocean, always stirred her heart. That was the reason she usually brushed his hair aside to reveal his eyes. Those charming eyes were usually hidden behind his blackout eyes lately, but luckily, those eyes came back when they were together. Come to think of it, we haven't gone on a proper date. Isolde caressed his chest with extra care so he would not wake up because of her touch. She was already fantasizing about seeing him in trunks on a beach. We've been indoors for a while. I haven't spoken to my parents for a while and I don't want to go alone. Will he come with me? I did pick a fight with him last time he was about to go there. She bit her lower lip. A red-haired man stood before a floor-to-ceiling glass wall, watching the bustling Dragon City in Pendragon Island. He had a clean-shaven chin, wore a white shirt, brown pants, and a pair of shoes. His jacket was on the bed. One hand was tucked into his pocket, the other rubbed his chin. This man was Michael Pendragon, Arthur Pendragon's cousin who managed the family's affairs in the eastern region and beyond. The Pendragon family had two parties, the Whites and Arthur Pendragon's side, the Blacks. The Whites were distant cousins of the Blacks, originating from the twin heirs of the first Pendragon head. Michael gazed at the cityscape of a city he had not visited for a long, long time. The last time he was here was when Isolde was born, and the entire family gathered to celebrate the family head's first child. When I heard the news that Arthur allowed his daughter to step into the sacred dungeon that determines the partners of the heads with a fanatic, I was disappointed, but when the dungeon was closed, I knew Arthur had officially lost his place as the head. The entire family has been disappointed. Michael tilted his head upward a bit. It's good he wants to step down. He can't occupy the position of Mr. Manhattan and that of family head. It would be too overwhelming. At least he's not a greedy fool like the head of the Bain family who led his family into ruins. Michael lowered his hand and tucked it into his pocket like the other. His brother is dead, and so is his daughter and adopted son. I guess the position of the next head will undoubtedly fall into the hands of the Whites. His eyes gleamed. He wanted to see just what kind of stunt Arthur would play now. Mildred worked for the authorities. She couldn't be the family head or the authorities would spread their control into the family, weakening them and taking control. Arthur might be amongst the 7 heads now, but he wasn't the only head. In the end, with all possibilities taken into account, the Blacks had no one who could take over from Arthur. And once power came into the hands of the Whites, it would never go back. After all, he had a son. His sister was also available, and she had children, remarkable ones. On the side of the Blacks, Isolde was dead. Geoffrey, a boy who had received a powerful dragon to add with his own, also died because his bond to his first summon was quite peculiar. An unfortunate thing. The only promising youth was Ivy, but it was noted that she had distanced herself from the family after Jeffrey's death. The blacks were broken, and the entire family had grown weak because of their actions. Michio walked over to a sofa, sat down, picked up a tablet on the stool beside him, and searched for a topic that once took the world like a storm. The Pendragon heiress's death. Pictures of the golden-haired girl lying dead made Michael sigh. Such a waste. She had great potential, but this is for the better. I benefited in the end. It was coming, the day of the banquet where the next head of the Pendragon family would be revealed. It would be a big event, a global event even. Over 70 dragon summoners from across the globe would be present, the elite of the elite, not just powerful people but influential ones, all members of the family. Many had flown in already. It would be a grand event, a new head emerging in the dawn of progenitors and gods. I can't wait, Michael smiled. That night Isaac went for an evening jog. It was quite late, and there weren't many people on the path he took. Isolde's dad won't be the head of the Pendragon family anymore. I don't know why it feels weird to me. He's been there before I was born, and now it just feels odd and unsettling. Isolde needs to know about this, he thought, then looked up. When will I see the sun again? It's almost a month. Suddenly, he noticed a man behind him, approaching with a huge hyena. The man suddenly brought out a pistol and aimed it at Isaac. "What's on you? You better have something valuable or I'll blow your brains out," the man said with shifty eyes. He looked paranoid for no reason at all. Isaac's eyes widened with disbelief. "Out of the millions in Manhattan, you want to rob me, me?" The hyena growled as the man scowled. "I don't care if you're a high tier, you're not immune to a bullet." High tier, that was the strongest being this man could think of. As the man spoke, Isaac noticed another man emerged ahead of him. They must have planned to ambush whoever they caught on this path. "This is hilarious," Isaac chuckled. "Am I dreaming?" "Dreaming, huh? Rip his eyes out, boy," the first robber commanded his hyena. "You'll wake up to reality real soon." The other snickered. As the hyena lunged toward Isaac, claws tearing through the ground, Neela appeared before Isaac. One of her spider legs shot forward, piercing the hyena's head. She flung the dead summon away as blood dripped from the thief's mouth. His pupils shook and body froze as those eyes pierced deep into his soul. "I didn't summon you," Isaac said as Neela flashed, appearing before the thief with her hand around his neck. "That's what you're talking about. He's about to die. Give me permission. I'm hungry." Her crimson eyes gleamed. Isaac folded his arms. "What's wrong with stealing from a thief?" Neela pouted like a famished child. "She's not wrong," Isaac shrugged. "All right." Neela swiftly absorbed the thief's memories until his eyes became blank. "Delicious." She squinted, casually tossing the man away before turning to the other thief. Isaac also looked at the man who stared at them, terrified to the core. "You couldn't run," Isaac raised an eyebrow. "Can he?" Neela gently jabbed Isaac with one of her spider legs while walking past him, her eyes locked on the second thief. She tilted her head. "Okay, you can run." The thief fell to his knees. The force keeping him in place was gone. He crawled backwards, struggling to even get on his feet and run. Isaac almost face-palmed. So people like these existed. "I don't want you to run." Neela spoke with a sweet, honeyed voice that made the thief stop. She giggled and absorbed his memories, while Isaac watched with both disbelief and slight terror. "I didn't give you permission to take his memories." Neela rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on." She turned, tilting her head, a move that made her silky white hair drop on her shoulder. "Don't you like getting stronger?" She blinked. "I thought you hated me. Doesn't seem like it." "Oh, I'll kill you the moment I'm certain I won't die once that's done," Neela smiled, waving her fingers at him. "Bye," she returned to his soul space. Isaac shook his head. In a way, he liked conversing with her even when their conversation didn't usually last long due to her sharp attitude. Was this normal? She was growing on him, but Neela was a spider. It had to be, because they shared each other's past memories and emotions, thus making them understand themselves. She was a titled god at the peak. According to her, this transfer gave her the opportunity to surpass this demigod level to become an ancient. Unfortunately, she was now bound to him. Isaac shook his head. Neela always diverted his mind toward her every time she appeared. Sighing, he looked at the hollow men lying on the ground, their eyes darting around, and walked away. With a soft click, the door to Snow's house opened and Isaac walked in. His eyes widened at the sight of the two sitting opposite Snow. Godfrey and who was that breathtaking red-haired woman? She looked like a man's perfect desire brought to life. Just her little smile tugged the strings of his heart. He was in awe. Isolde, Isaac gasped. Isolde stood up and opened her arms. Come here, she smiled. I. Isaac couldn't form a word as Isolde drew close and hugged him. A smile appeared on his face in the end. How's Lucy? Isolde asked. She was fine when I left. What about your mom still troubling her? Isolde chuckled. Isaac scratched the back of his head, completely flushed and embarrassed. Isolde just looked different. It felt like he was speaking to a superior being. She had this air around her that made him unable to look straight at her face. But Isolde wasn't having any of that. She took him aside. It's been a while since she heard from her close friend Lucy. She would draw out as much information from Isaac. What? Snow raised an eyebrow. Why are you looking at me like that? He asked Godfrey. You're still at the origin tier. I thought the mana tree would have called you by now. Godfrey said what was on his mind. Snow shrugged. Being an origin tier summoner isn't that bad. I can do what I want with my current power, and you know my summon's unique trait is being able to affect those beyond my tier. With that, I can evade paragons. I'm not doing that bad. Godfrey frowned. I thought you were a favored one. The mana tree clearly showed interest in you, or has that interest faded? He was skeptical. Enough about me. You and Isolde should go meet her parents. Her father is about to give up his place as Pendragon head, and trust me, if the Pendragons are against us in the new age, it wouldn't be easy to stay alive, much less remain in Manhattan. Snow said gravely. Godfrey's eyes narrowed a bit. That was it, just him to the strongest family in the region, a family of dragons. Snow's eyes flickered. Godfrey was worried, though. He wasn't sure the Pendragon family as a whole liked him, so once someone else took that position, the entire island might be a danger zone. Unless he planned on engaging in a fight, he might have to avoid the Pendragon family. He might have to visit his father-in-law. That night, Godfrey and Isolde teleported straight to her father's library in the mansion. It was a place no one aside from her father would be, even if the mansion was populated. The moment Godfrey appeared, he was stunned by the largeness of this library. It was 3-story tall with a tall glass window that almost reached the lofty ceiling. This glass window was directly behind Arthur's desk. Books were in every corner of the library, from the ground floor to the 3rd floors, filling every shelf he laid eyes on. The books in here might be able to fill the shelves of Amazon City Library, Godfrey thought. There were sofas and small round tables in case Arthur had some important guests and wanted to chat with them in his office. Arthur, who sat behind his desk, lifted his head and sighed, his shoulders loosening. Finally they were here, Isolde. Arthur rose to his feet. He would have never recognized her if they were in a public space, or even if she spoke to him, but seeing her beside, Godfrey made him realize that this was his daughter. Dad, Isolde rushed and hugged him. You don't know how much you've troubled my heart. Arthur sighed in relief as he patted her back, then looked at Godfrey and nodded. Godfrey responded with a nod. I'm glad you're back. It would have been a huge ordeal if you weren't. The family is in need of a new head. Arthur went to his chair and looked at Isolde. "Your mother and I have been waiting for you." "Who do you have in mind?" Isolde asked as she sat on the chair on the other side of the desk. Godfrey, who sat beside her, blinked at that question. Was that all she could say? "You," Arthur replied. "I'm going to appoint you, but under the guise of an adopted daughter. Of course, the reaction of the family won't be warm, but I've trained you for this. It's time to lead the entire family." Isolde couldn't say a word. She needed a moment to calm herself. This was big, leading the prestigious dragon family, one of the greatest in the entire world. Arthur continued after a brief pause. "The core information of the family won't be in my hands anymore. Once I'm done with this, I can face Cain. I suspect a member of the heads might still be a clone. Even if I'm mistaken, it's better to be suspicious. However, I'm willing to go all in and trust them. All of them." Arthur saw Godfrey's eyes sharpen at those last words. "I'll be your light while you help Isolde," Arthur said inwardly. Ahem. He cleared his throat, brought out a file, and handed it over to Isolde. "We've prepared everything. The world will know you as Celine Pendragon, the 21-year-old girl I adopted to replace the void of my dead daughter." Isolde picked it up. Godfrey crossed one leg over the other. The plan was feasible. If people like him and her father, who were extremely close to Isolde, had doubts, then it would be almost impossible for anyone to recognize her. One was a beautiful girl, the other a gorgeous goddess. "Our first obstacle will be the elders. Once they agree, we'll prepare for the banquet which I'll be hosting in 2 days' time. After your appointment, we'll move straight to the masquerade ball. Every head is supposed to dance with their partner there," Arthur explained. Isolde looked at Godfrey, but as Celine. "You don't have a partner," Arthur completed what she was about to say. "You don't have to worry, though. Isolde is still Godfrey's partner. There's nothing separating both of you." Arthur called for the butler, who stepped in a few moments later. "Introduce Celine to her room." The butler bowed. "Miss Celine, please come with me. Your mother will meet you shortly." Isolde looked at Godfrey until she left the library and the door was shut. "She acts like both of you have been separated," Arthur sighed in resignation. "I plan to get her a ring." Godfrey's statement made Arthur pause. "People will want to know who that ring belongs to. It would lead to you because she won't remove that ring as Celine." Arthur entwined his fingers. "The world will consider you shallow, and that you want to continue leeching off the Pendragon family, or that we want to keep you because of your strength," he added. "Let them say what they want. People will always speak. If I'm seen publicly with Celine, Cain will never think of Isolde, and there's almost nothing linking the former Isolde with who she had become. In the end, people will say I was seduced by her beauty." "They're not entirely wrong," he added inwardly. "I just want to know your opinion." Arthur smiled. "It's more than I could ask for. Mrs. Beijing reported that Miquella might be a fanatic, so we tried bringing her in for questioning, but she fled. However, what she said publicly has yet to be denounced. Some heads are proposing you take the oath and work for them before you're cleared publicly, and the bounty on you and your mother is brought down." With a soft gleam in his eyes, Arthur continued. "They won't be too hasty because they want to gauge your strength. Now, if you want to announce yourself as Celine partner, you better have the strength to keep the authorities at bay." Godfrey shrugged. "I think I can hold my own." "Quite humble for a demigod," Arthur's eyes gleamed. Godfrey raised an eyebrow. "You can sense it. That butler is like a family heirloom. The mana tree favors it every new age. It's a titled god with great potential, but I'll pass it on to the next head soon." That butler is a fortunate one, Godfrey thought. Once you do this, to the world you'll be no different from a consort, Celine's consort. Godfrey rose to his feet. "I know." Arthur's eyes flashed, "but I know who's king." That same night, Arthur went to meet the elders with Isolde. They might not be the strongest, but they held the greatest influence. Once they rejected a notion, the entire house would be against it. It took him years to make them agree to make Isolde the next head, so Arthur was prepared for a tough encounter. The moment they stepped into the hall, one of the elders' voices rang. "Who is this?" "My daughter, she will take my place." Arthur's reply resulted in a loud rebuttal. "Is this a joke? You brought a girl from nowhere, just 2 days before the next head is appointed, and you want this no-name stranger to become the head of this great family." "Leave this place," another elder bellowed. "We have agreed for Michael to be the next head. No one has the capacity to lead this family of dragons better than Michael." Isolde raised an eyebrow. "Lead dragons? Please, if you were to be in the presence of true dragons, none of you would stand without shaking knees." "What?" Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down.